Ito po ba ay may attribute natin sa increased transparency and accountability na cornerstone nga po ng pamamahala ng ating administrasyon?
Ganun nga ang ating konklusyon mula dyan at patuloy pa rin yung pagsisikap natin na higit pang pahusayin ang ating magiging ranking dyan sa economic freedom. Kasi ibig sabihin yan ay ganap ang kalayaan ng mga lumalahok sa ating ekonomiya na gawin ang kanilang nais gawin para makapag-ambag sila sa pag-unlad ng ating bansa. At sa iba pang aspeto katulad ng transparency, katulad ng paglaban sa korupsyon, ay sinisikap ng pamahalaan na gawin ang lahat ng nararapat. Parang ang Pilipinas ay magiging preferred destination ng pamumuhunan, ng turismo at ng kalakal na magbubunsod ng mahalagang ambag sa ating pag-unlad.
Pagbabago ang isinagawa ang Administrasyong Aquino sa pamamagitan po ng pagpapatupad ng mas transparent na procurement system. Ano-ano pa po ba yung aayusin pa ng pamahalaan para masiguro po na ma-eliminate yung korupsyon?
Mahalaga po rito yung pagkakaroon ng isang kultura ng integridad sa ating serbisyo publiko. Kaya po sa ngayon, ang ating pinagtutuunan ng pansin ay yung pag-unawa ng lahat ng empleyado, lahat ng mga lingkod bayan, na ang kanilang pagganap sa trabaho ay mahalagang ambag sa pagtatatag ng mas malakas at mas maunlad na bansa. Pinapairal po yung tinatawag na performance-based incentive system. Lahat po ng mga kawani at empleyado, opisyal at leader ng pamahalaan ay naninindigan at nangangako na tatalima sa mga mataas ng pamantayan ng integridad at ang kanilang kontribusyon ay susukatin sa pamagitan ng kanilang performance indicators. Kaya po makikita natin na sa pang-araw-araw na pagkilos, pinapaunawa po ito at isinasabuhay sa isip, sa salita at sa gawa ng lahat at opisyal ng ating pamahalaan.
Maraming salamat po sa inyo, PCOO Secretary Sonny Coloma, talking about increased transparency and accountability in government. Thank you for your time, sir.
Maraming salamat.
Samantala, habang inaantabayanan po natin ang pagdating ng Pangulong Benigno S. Aquino III sa mahalagang okasyon na ito, narito po ang isang background tungkol sa Good Governance Summit. Ang 3 araw na summit po na ito ay may temang Good Governance through Open Government and Sustainable Procurement. Ito po ay inorganisa ng Department of Budget and Management, ang Procurement Service o PS, ang Government Procurement Policy Board Technical Support Service Office o GPPB TSO. Kasama po ang Presidential Communications Development and Strategic Planning Office o PCDS-PO. Layunin po ng summit na palawigin ang kaalaman ng publiko patungkol po sa suporta at partisipasyon ng stakeholders sa pagsusulong ng reformang ito. Inaasahan na dadaluhan ito ng mahigit kumulang 1,000 participants kasama ang Philippine governance and procurement stakeholders, ang international development partners tulad po ng World Bank at Asia Development Bank, ang non-government organizations, open data experts at public procurement practitioners. Pangangasiwaan po ng National Competitiveness Council o NCC ang presentation ng results ng 2013 Annual Enterprise Survey on Corruption at Game Plan for Competitiveness 2.0. Ang session na ito ay magaganap po ngayong hapon mula 1:00 hanggang 5:00. Ang Annual Enterprise Survey on Corruption ay nagbibigay ng ideya tungkol sa saloobin ng Filipino business sector sa korupsyon at good governance. Sa ikalawang araw naman po ay ilulunsad ang Open Data Philippines sa data.gov.ph. Sa pamamagitan po ng portal na ito ay magiging accessible at understandable at reusable ang public sector information at datasets para po sa ating lahat, sa bawat Pilipino. Sa ikatlong araw naman ay magaganap ang selebrasyon ng ika-10 taon ng RA 9186 o yung Act Providing for the Modernization, Standardization and Regulation of the Procurement Activities of the Government and for Other Purposes at ang ika-35th year ng service. Samantala po ay dumating na nga po ang Pangulong Benigno S. Aquino III dito po sa Philippine International Convention Center. Siya po ay sinalubong ni Secretary Butch Abad, ang Secretary po ng DBM na isa po sa mga organizers ng event na ito. At gaya po ng aking nabanggit ay dinadaluhan po ito ng ilan sa mga stakeholders mula po sa World Bank, Asian Development Bank at iba pa pong private sector agencies. Nandito rin po si PLLO Secretary Manuel Mamba, DOST Secretary Mario Montejo, OCS Secretary Rene Almendras, DOJ Secretary Laila De Lima, DSWD Secretary Dinky Soliman, at si OPS Secretary Edwin Lasherda, DOTC Secretary Jude Abaya, DepEd Secretary Armin Luistro, Health Secretary Enrique Ona, NAPSI Secretary Joel Rocamora at DILG Secretary Mar Rojas. Tunghayan po natin ng live ang pagbubukas ng Good Governance Summit mula po dito sa PICC.
Please remain standing for the Philippine National Anthem. Please be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Good Governance Summit 2014 with the theme Good Governance through Open Government and Sustainable Procurement. May I call on the Secretary of the Department of Budget and Management, Honorable Florencio B. Abad, for his welcome remarks and summit overview.
His Excellency President Aquino, my colleagues in the Cabinet, our compatriots in civil society and the business community, our development partners and the diplomatic community, ladies and gentlemen, allies in reform, thank you and good morning. We have gone past the midpoint of the Aquino administration. The year that has passed, 2013, was a truly remarkable year, a historic year for our country. Last year, we achieved exceptional feats, most notably our robust economic growth that outshines our neighbors and are being upgraded into a higher level of competitiveness despite the uncertain global situation. All of these are fundamentally due to the improved state of governance. Ginawa nating posible ang dati tila ba imposible. But as we achieve a lot, so are we expected to do more. At the same time, we also face seemingly insurmountable challenges. The outpouring of our people's outrage due to abuses in the use of pork barrel funds, as well as the unprecedented calamities that ravage many parts of our country. Our people's demand for honest, responsive, and compassionate government has heightened much more. All of these have placed our country and our people at a critical historic juncture. where we have a great opportunity to pursue real transformation in our society. Ang mabibigat na mga krisis na hinarap natin bilang isang bansa, kung tutuusin, talaga ring oportunidad upang isulong ang pagbabago sa ating lipunan at matamo natin ang inclusive development. Now more than ever, our people are interested in knowing more about how government operates. They are more and more impassioned about participating in statecraft. Now more than ever, we are being mandated to deepen transparency, accountability, and citizens' participation in the systems of governance. And rest assured, the current administration, led by President Aquino, is ever more deeply committed to our continuing journey along Daang Matuwid. Today, we hold this Good Governance Summit not to brag about our achievements in the past 3 years, but to solidify the steps that we need to take moving forward in the next 3 years. Moreover, we are here to deepen our commitment and partnership with the people in pursuit of transparency, accountability, and participatory governance. We know that we in government cannot do it alone. Our bosses to link arms with us towards the path of reform and prosperity. In the years that passed, we have witnessed what we could collectively achieve if we enable active citizenship. After all, President Aquino won because of the people's aspiration for a better government, a government that primordially and solely serves the people, a government bound by its social contract with the Filipino people, a government rooted in the spirit of people power. Our summit over the 3 days will be both a celebration of what we have collectively achieved and an exercise of deepening our commitment to the social contract. Today, we are presenting our good governance initiatives, our game plan for transforming governance systems, opening public institutions to the people, and giving voice to the voiceless. From now to 2016, we have outlined specific reform initiatives for increasing transparency, accountability, and citizens' participation towards curbing corruption, improving service delivery, and increasing our economic effectiveness towards empowering our people. For instance, this morning, we are launching in the President's presence the cashless purchase card system, which we are piloting in the armed forces. This afternoon, we will have breakout sessions on specific reforms like grassroots participatory budgeting. The SWS Enterprise Survey on Corruption will also be launched this afternoon. This and many more are all geared towards empowering our citizens to play a more active role in the processes of statecraft. Our reforms will be for naught if our citizens do not have a role in it. More so if they do not see the concrete and meaningful benefits of reform in their lives. Tomorrow, we will launch a subset of our game plan for empowering our citizens, Open Data Philippines. Through this reform, vast amounts of government data, including data on government expenditures and procurement, will now be easily accessible by our people in usable electronic format rather than in hard copy and for free rather than with a fee. Empowerment requires us to arm our citizens with data that they can use to make informed decisions on public matters. Open Data Philippines, to a significant extent, fulfills our promise of enabling every citizen to exercise his or her right to public information. On Friday, we will be celebrating the 10th year of our Government Procurement Reform Act in our continuing journey to ensure efficient, transparent, and effective government procurement. The enactment of the Government Procurement Reform Act in 2003 is a major milestone in the history of governance in the Philippines. It has standardized processes, opened up the arena for competition, and put emphasis on transparency and accountability. It is, as I also wish to note, a reform that was made possible through active civil society involvement. We are definitely better off with the GPRA than without it. But 10 years into implementation of GPRA, we must address shortcomings in procurement regulations and processes and make this responsive to times, such as urgencies brought about by climate change. In conclusion, certainly all of the 6 years of the administration may not be enough time to fully transform public institutions and achieve the ideal government that we all are dreaming of. Certainly, reform cannot happen overnight. But certainly, we have moved forward in an unprecedented way. We have made possible what was seen before as impossible. And certainly, we have a great opportunity to further pursue meaningful and irreversible reform. We must deepen the practice of good governance in bureaucracies. We must nurture the collective passion of our citizenry for reform and create more channels for their constructive engagement in governance, even if such expresses itself in differences in opinions and approaches. Now more than ever, we should deepen our partnership with our people as we continue our journey along the daang matuwid. Our victory depends on you, our bosses. Ang dating baluktot, tinuwid na natin, or patuloy nating tinutuwid. Wala nang balikan sa dating nakagawian. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you very much, Secretary Abad. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to one of the highlights of this morning's program, the ceremonial turnover of the cashless purchase card system. Once again, may we request Secretary Abad to give an overview of the cashless purchase card. Sir?
The cashless purchase card system that we are launching today is a follow-through on an issue that we addressed early on in the Aquino administration. If you will recall, in 2011, the issue of the alleged conversion of funds in the military was exposed to the public. It purportedly involved billions of pesos in funds supposedly for the hiring of soldiers, but which were converted to other uses, including certain use purposes. With the military leadership committed to President Aquino's reform agenda, we ended this decades-old and deeply ingrained practice. Immediately after the exposure of this issue, we withheld the release of funds for unfilled personnel of the uniformed forces subject to the submission of a complete roster of active military personnel. We also segregated funds for the filling up of unfilled positions under the Miscellaneous Personal Benefits Fund to be released only upon the submission of pertinent documents for the hiring of personnel. We also instituted other reforms to rid military rosters of supposed ghost soldiers and ghost pensioners. On the latter, we have instituted a system of pension payments through the ATM with identity verification via biometrics. This is a system that does away with the old checking system, which is susceptible to abuse. I dare say that these reforms, like many others, would not have been made under a status quo presidency. Moreover, I dare say that these reforms were only made possible because the leadership and rank and file embrace the core values of transparency and accountability. Ending conversion, however, is not enough. We look into the underlying reasons why this had happened in the first place. These included government processes like procurement that were not responsive to the nature of urgent military operations. Recognizing the operational intricacies of our uniformed troops, while not sacrificing the need for tighter accountability in public expenses, we came up with the cashless purchase cards system that we are launching today. Through this innovation, expenses for a limited menu of items can now be done fast, and liquidation can also be done in an instant. The cashless purchase cards that we are launching today is but one of our many technology-enabled reform initiatives to improve the speed, efficiency, and transparency of government expenditures. These are all about building a government that is responsive to the needs of our people and that uphold the people's interests as paramount. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Secretary Abad. And at this point, may we call on Citibank Corporate and Investment Banking Vice Chairman Jay Collins, together with Citibank CEO Philippines Batara Shanturi on stage to present and turn over an enlarged cashless purchase card to the President. They will be assisted by DBM Secretary Florencio Abad and DND Assistant Secretary Patrick Velez. We also have the DND Deputy Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Virgilio Duran. And at this point, we request His Excellency President Benigno S. Aquino III to receive from Citibank the enlarged replica of the cashless purchase card.
Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and privilege to be here today with you. During his first visit to the United States in September of 2010, I had the personal and distinct honor of discussing with President Aquino the experience of Citibank in helping governments around the world in their efforts to improve transparency and efficiency. That conversation brought us here today after extensive discussions of best practices to which this government so strongly aspires. All of us at Citibank take deep pride in being a part of this historic announcement of the Republic of the Philippines' first adoption of the cashless purchase card. Good governance begins clearly by defining the enemy. When it comes to monetary transactions, the enemy is cash, paper, and manual processes. Singly or taken together, they present vulnerabilities to any system, leaving an institution open for abuse, fraud, graft, even leakage, inside the organization and out. The procurement process, for one, is perhaps globally the most vulnerable for governments to transparency hurdles and inefficiency and roadblocks related to cost of the operations of government. Through electronic banking solutions such as this purchase card, one can introduce tighter controls, audit processes, and greater transparency. They're like bringing a spotlight to a dark room, making it hard for an unwanted visitor to hide. Cash, paper, and manual processes are also the enemies of efficiency. Reduce or eliminate them, and a government can cut down their costs, transaction cycle time, and improve purchasing and administrative efficiencies dramatically. Conceptually, it's critical to understand that what Citi will help this government deliver is not about a piece of plastic. Instead, about the information system, the back end that is bolted to the cards, that allows government to aggregate, analyze, and monitor expenditures in a way that is extraordinarily difficult to achieve in a cash and paper world. Electronic information is a powerful tool, whether it is used simply to attack costly processes, to negotiate better deals with suppliers to government, or to understand and better manage government spending. It is a critical tool in the good governance toolkit. This mandate here is to make this transparency process irreversible across the national government, both technologically and culturally, and to do so as quickly as possible. It is a true privilege for Citi to work with the country's military leadership in the early stage of this initiative. We have had a similar privilege in working with other governments, including the U.S. government, on its Smart Pay 2 program, and in particular with the U.S. military in the successful development and implementation of its purchase card program. Of course, the work by no means ends here today. In fact, it begins anew. The successful implementation of this element of the President's reform agenda will require even more hard work and consistent oversight efforts. It is a process to which we at Citi are fully committed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Indeed, good governance is synonymous to this administration's goal of pursuing the straight path. To tell us more about the governance cluster plan, may I invite everyone to watch this video.
Action, which is why the governance cluster tasked to institutionalize transparent, accountable, and participatory governance, identified key good governance initiatives for 2013 to...
All right, it seems that we are experiencing some technical difficulty, but we promise to show you that video later on. Anyway, the summit will run until Friday, all right? So at this point, may we call on once again the Secretary of the Department of Budget and Management, Honorable Florencio Biabad, to introduce our guest of honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of our Republic, Benigno Simeon Aquino III.
Good day. Please sit down. His Excellency Jorge Domecq, Secretary Marojas, Secretary Laila de Lima, Secretary Brother Armin Nuistro, Secretary Butchabad, Secretary Edwin Licerda, Sani Coloma, Rene Almendras, Manny Mamba, Meli Nicolas, Chairman Francis Tolentino, Chairman Cesar Villanueva, Chairman Francisco Duque, Chairperson Grace Polidutan, Chairperson Eta Rosales, Commissioner Jimenez, Governor Sai Tetanco, Mr. Batara Sian Turi, Mr. J. Collins, fellow workers of government, honored guests, mga minamahal kong mga kababayan, good morning to each and everyone. When I accepted the mandate of the people back in 2010, I did so without the expectation that I would just get on a merry-go-round and wait the rest of the term out, perpetuating the status quo and perhaps even exacerbating existing problems. Rather, I did so with the resolve to effect transformational change and fulfill the promise I made in my campaign, which said, kung walang korap, walang mahirap. And translated, where there is no corruption, there will be no poverty. Of course, I also entered office knowing that there would be many challenges along the way. Allow me to give you an example which would best discussion for today. Early on in our administration, there was a need to procure rifles for our police service. Some of you may know that there are many different rifle systems in the world. we decided that an M4 assault rifle would best fit the needs of our personnel. And we then went through the normal bidding and procurement processes to seek potential suppliers. For some reason, what looked like the winning bidder turned out to be supplying a completely different rifle system on a platform that used completely different mechanisms and technologies, but was dressed up to look like an M4. In this situation, what we wanted to get and what we were about to get were two very different things. On top of that, we were going to procure this at a price much higher than the normal M4s. What really caught my attention was that this particular supplier was already on the post-qualification stage of a process that was supposed to have taken several phases. If their rifles had passed these evaluations, we would have been obligated to procure items that we did not need or want in the first place. Fortunately, they failed the post-evaluation or post-qualification stage, and I received this information in time and was able to call the attention of the people involved and direct our leadership to conduct the necessary investigations and to stop this unnecessary procurement. One can argue that all the necessary steps were followed religiously. However, when you are almost obligated to accept the delivery of an item you never wanted to order, there is something inherently wrong in the situation. And even though we were ultimately able to get the right rifles at reasonable prices, this anecdote shows us an unpleasant aspect of governance, that sometimes, even if all the processes are followed, the end result still would not necessarily redound to the benefit of our people. Perhaps that is one facet. Faulty processes that might have made it easier for things to fall through the cracks. Another facet is that certain people who had to make decisions did not have the necessary data, which would have allowed them to know from the start that these particular rifles should not have been pre-qualified, much less post-qualified. This presents a picture of the challenges the administration continues to confront today. Many of these are rooted in systems and processes that, while they may have served their purpose at one time, are badly outdated. Even worse, they are susceptible to abuse, which could lead to inefficiency, wastage, and opportunities for the unscrupulous to steal from the nation's coffers. This is why we have taken every step necessary to ensure that under our administration, the national budget is crafted for the benefit of our people. One innovation we introduced in the 2014 budget cycle was that of the General Appropriations Act, or GAA, as release document system. The GAA is the law that contains the budget. In the past, special allotment release orders, the very famous SAROs, or notices of cash allotments, were needed before agencies could begin utilizing their budgets. Some unscrupulous individuals saw this as an avenue to line their pockets. They would delay the issuance of these documents, asking for incentives or, in plain language, bribes, in exchange for the release of documents. With the GAA as release document system in place, the law that contains the budget is the release document. This effectively solidifies our legislators' power over the purse, a mandate that by law is theirs in the first place. In effect, with the dawn of the first day of 2014, around 86% of the budget was released to agencies, lessening opportunities for corruption and giving these agencies the ability to begin implementing their projects right away. Greater efficiency, integrity, and true service. These are the principles behind the reforms we have made in our budgeting process. But we know that we cannot look at the big picture alone. There is also a need to examine the details and ensure that each agency can make best use of the funds allotted to them. This is not merely about agencies adhering strictly to the proper bidding and procurement processes. In some cases, it requires them to modify processes to become more efficient. Our Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, is a remarkable example. The old process, or one of their old processes, involved potential bidders for infrastructure projects writing letters of intent. Their names would then be posted in a list. This facilitated collusion among bidders who would know who their competitors would be speak to each other and agree to synchronize bids, defeating the purpose of the public bidding process. DPWH Secretary Babe Singson no longer requires these publications of lists in the bidding process, facilitating true competition, which has led to the Filipino people getting the infrastructure they need, the right projects at the right quality at reduced cost, completed within a reduced time frame, all because we put the right people on the job. As a matter of fact, to date, the DPWH has saved not less than 19 billion pesos. I hope these examples have made it clear. All these processes and systems, all of these laws are there to serve the people. The people are not here to be at the mercy of processes, especially when these processes have already become obsolete and counterproductive. After all, government exists precisely to improve the lot of the people they swore to serve and from whom they received their mandate. And so we continue to ask ourselves these questions. How do we further plug leaks in the system to prevent graft and corruption? How do we make our processes that much more efficient? Our goal is to institutionalize and make it very difficult for unscrupulous individuals to steal from the people, regardless of who sits in office. This is where the introduction of cashless transactions comes in. A recent study identified that one of the major financial risks remaining is the high volume of cash advances in agencies. The risks of this kind of system are obvious. The presence of large sums of cash in offices can pose a temptation to even the most honest employee, not to mention those who would willingly take advantage of such a situation. We are far from being a cashless society. 98% of all retail financial transactions in our country are still made in cash. The government seems to be ahead of the market, with 54% of its financial transactions already done through a cashless system. And for the sake of accountability and efficiency, we are pushing the envelope further. It is only appropriate that we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Procurement Reform Act by introducing a mechanism that modernizes government procurement, the launch of the Cashless Purchase Card or CPC program. Cashless purchase cards will be issued to agencies for low-value payments of a restricted number and type of goods. They will resemble ordinary credit cards, but will have additional restrictions more suited to the needs of government. Through the cashless purchase cards and other similar reforms, government financial transactions should be 100% checkless and 80% cashless before the end of this year. The first phase of the CPC program will take place in the first quarter of 2014 with the Department of Budget Management and the Department of National Defense and the General Headquarters of the Armed Forces of the Philippines as pilot agencies for implementation. A limited number of cards will be distributed to these agencies with allowable purchases, likewise limited to medical supplies, meals, the transportation of official documents, airline tickets, and construction supplies for minor repairs. If all goes well, the program will be rolled out and cashless purchases cards will be distributed in other national government agencies next year. Even in this initial implementation, the CPC system will already help improve the overall fiscal management of government and will help the thousands of officials who must deal with the needs of their agencies every day. In the future, a government director in a far-flung province will go through lengthy processes if money is needed for minor construction to repair their office. The cashless purchase cards will allow them to procure the necessary materials and immediately, and given that accounting for transactions is automatically done, suspicious use of the card can be tracked easily. On top of that, this system also allows us to capture and collate the correct data, which redounds to real benefits. For one, a bigger sample size of data will allow us to refine our understanding of programs that need funding. It will also make it easier for the Treasury to determine how much cash is needed on a daily basis, giving us an accurate record which government can use in future decision-making. Data such as those gathered through the cashless purchase card serves as the lifeblood of another program we will be launching in the summit. We will be unveiling a platform that will collate all relevant government data, not only for use in governance, but also for the information and use of the wider public. Open Data Philippines, which is accessible through www.data.gov.ph beginning tomorrow. Open Data Philippines is a website for publicly available up-to-date national from the total enrollment in public secondary schools over a certain period of time to the aforementioned budget and procurement data and everything in between. As the project progresses, we can only expect the wealth and depth of data available online to grow, with information on anything and everything we can think of. None of us should make the mistake of thinking that Open Data Philippines stops at being a repository of data. Its very name says otherwise. Opening data is about making statistics understandable through the use of reader-friendly visualizations. The more technologically savvy among our countrymen can also make use of available data to participate and create their own visualizations and applications for the use of others. Among those already included in the website are applications that can help Metro Manila residents plan their daily commutes. Other applications seek to make government expenditures more accessible. Ultimately, opening data is more than just making columns and rows of figures available for viewing. It is about empowering the people through information. This is also something our government can make use of. As president, I once thought that I would have access to all kinds of information anytime, every time, and all the time. To a degree, that is true, but it is not as simple as punching a few keys on a keyboard. Sometimes it actually involves wading through documents that are fragile given their age, and that only happens, of course, if you can find out immediately where these documents are located. Open data is a step towards having all information at our fingertips, which we can use to better assess, improve, and even develop programs and policies. The Cashless Purchase Card Program and Open Data Philippines are only the latest in a long list of reforms we have implemented towards instituting good governance. Everything else, including some of our plans for the future, can be found in the brochures that were included in your kits. I encourage you to read and familiarize yourself with them. Not only will they give you information that you can use over the next few days, they will also show you how strongly we are committed to living out the principles of integrity, accountability, and transparency. They will also show you that our administration is not in the business of building castles in the air. Earlier, when I spoke of upgrading systems and processes, I did not only in a technological sense. We are upgrading in the truest sense of the word, exploring every possible avenue to improve the way we serve our countrymen. Sometimes it has been as simple as staying the course and making sure that existing programs fulfill their mandates, such as truly chasing after tax evaders, smugglers, and the corrupt, to hold them accountable for their actions. Other times, they were groundbreaking in the sense that our administration pursued modernization on an unprecedented scale, for example, in the projects we have launched today. What ties all these initiatives together is the efficiency and the persistence with which we have pursued them. Our determination to let Filipinos truly reap the tangible benefits of good governance. Moving forward, this will continue to characterize our efforts. This will allow us to reach greater heights and move from success to success as we make good governance the norm, a firm foundation that succeeding administrations can hopefully build on for the benefit of the Philippines. Thank you, and may you have a successful summit.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, that ends our program with the President. Thank you, Mr. President, once again for honoring us with your presence during the Good Governance Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your places until the President and his party have left the reception hall.
Yan po ang naging talumpati ng Pangulong Benigno S. Aquino III sa pagbubukas ng Good Governance Summit na kasalukuyan pong ginaganap dito sa Philippine International Convention Center. Sa kanyang talumpati, ginunita ng Pangulo ang korupsyon na kanya naabutan sa sistema ng pamahalaan nang maluklok siya sa pwesto noong taong 2010. Inihalimbawa pa ng Pangulo ang anyay maanumalyang bidding ng mga M4 rifles. Ayon sa Pangulo, kung noon ay maraming depekto sa proseso ng bidding, Ngayon, sa ilalim ng kanyang pamamahala ay maraming pagbabagong ipinatupad para masigurong maayos ang paggastos sa kaban ng bayan. Ilan dito ay ang GAA as Release Document System. Sa DPWH naman, ang pag-aalis ng pag-aanunsyo at paglalabas ng listahan ng mga bidders para maalis ang sabwatan sa pamamagitan ng mga bidder at cashless transaction. Ibinida rin ng Pangulo ang paglulunsad ngayon ng Cashless Purchase Card o CPC program na napapanahon niya ngayong ginugunita natin ang ika-10 anibersaryo ng Procurement Reform Act. Sa pamamagitan nito ay mababawasan ang pag-aabuso sa paggastos ng kaban ng bayan. Isa rin sa mahalagang programa ng pamahalaan na nabanggit ng Pangulo na inilunsad ngayon ay ang Open Data Philippines kung saan maaari nga makita sa www.data.gov.ph ang kung saan napupunta po ang paggastos ng pamahalaan sa pera ng taong bayan. Ang pag-upgrade umano ng serbisyo ng pamahalaan sa taong bayan ay hindi lamang sa pamamagitan ng technological upgrade, kundi ito ay pag-upgrade sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay ng mas magandang serbisyo sa bawat Pilipino. Samantala, bago po dumating ang Pangulo kanina, ay nakausap po natin ang Executive Director ng GPP-BTSO na si Ginoong Dennis Santiago. Panuurin po natin ang aming naging panayam. Director Santiago, ano po yung mga pagpabagong isinagawa ng ating pamahalaan sa procurement system para po mapanatili yung transparency and accountability sa paggastos po ng pera ng taong bayan?
Alam niyo, maganda yung procurement law dahil the law provides for transparency, competition, efficiency, and economy in public procurement. At saka maraming pagbabago na ipinasok dito. Mga ilan dito would be yung konsepto ng removal ng discretion. Tinanggal yung discretion sa Bids and Awards Committee kumpara sa dati na meron palaging discretion na ginagamit ang Bids and Awards Committee or yung Pre-Qualification Bids and Awards Committee. Kaya nangyayari noon was they entertain substantial compliance. And so yung malawak yung discretion na binibigay sa Bids and Awards Committee. Ngayon, under the procurement law, the RA 9184, tinanggal ito. Pinalitan ito ng tinatawag natin na non-discretionary pass or fail criterion. Sa ganito, hindi maaabuso yung discretion ng Bids and Awards Committee. Isa pang aspeto is yung pagtanggal ng pre-qualification. Nung araw, yung pre-qualification kasi ay labas siya dun sa procurement process. Ang nangyayari tuloy is meron kang 2, 3, 4 na buwan para mag-pre-qualify. Samantalang ngayon, meron lang tayong simple eligibility checking at ito ay napapaloob na dun mismo sa bidding process. Gumagamit pa rin ng simple non-discretionary pass or fail criterion. Ano ba yung epekto nito? Ang epekto nito ay napapabilis yung procurement, napapaganda yung paggastos ng pera ng taong bayan. Dahil mabilis ang procurement, mabilis ang pagbili, naibibigay o naidi-deliver kagad yung mga pangangailangan ng ating gobyerno at sa pangkalahatan yung pangangailangan ng sambayan ng Pilipino.
Nabanggit nyo na po yung epekto nito sa pagpapaganda ng paggastos ng pera ng taong bayan sa tamang paraan. Yun naman pong pag-aalis o pag-lessen ng corruption sa proseso. Ano pong epekto nito para mabawasan o ma-eliminate yung corruption?
Yeah. Magandang tanong yan. As a matter of fact, the procurement law, when it was enacted by Congress, was really intended to combat graft and corruption. The procurement law is not only an administrative law, it's also a criminal law. May mga penalties po tayo. Pinalakas po yung konsepto ng accountability. Hindi lamang ng mga sumasali sa bid, kundi pati ng mga nag-evaluate ng bid, pati yung miyembro ng Bids and Awards Committee. Pwede silang maging liable, maliban pa sa mga ibang pwedeng ma-apply na batas. Yung miyembro ng Bids and Awards Committee, the Secretariat, the Technical Working Group may be held liable for against provisions of the procurement law. Dahil dito, mas nagkaroon ng ayos, Hindi katulad nung araw, parang bahala na lang, sige, substantial compliance, okay na yan, naaabuso yung discretion. Ngayon, dahil na-control ang discretion, mas pino ang ginagawa ng mga miyembro ng Bids and Awards Committee. Dahil dito, na-address yung pagpuksa o paglaban sa graft and corruption.
Maraming salamat po sa inyo, Executive Director Dennis Santiago ng GPP-BTSO. Inyo pong natunghayan ang ating naging interview kay Executive Director Denny Santiago ng GPPBTSO. He was talking about the reforms made in the procurement system para nga po mabawasan yung korupsyon at discretion dun sa mga government offices. At kanina rin nga po ay sa kanyang talumpati inassure ng Pangulong Benigno S. Aquino III na tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang pagsasagawa ng pamahalaan ng reforma para mabawasan ang korupsyon at ma-increase yung transparency and accountability sa mga prosesong isinasagawa ng ating pamahalaan. Samantala po kanina ay nakausap din po natin ang Assistant Country Director Bank na si Chio Kanda. Narito po ang aming naging panayam. Panoorin po natin. Banks support this program of the government, the Open Data Philippines system.
Okay. Well, we as the World Bank Group, support the government in the many front. But first of all, the willingness and commitment of the current government to open up the data, information, to promote transparency and accountability has been a driving force. And what we have done is basically to take advantage of that strong commitment and then supported technical aspects, things like how the open data source can be used for, say, data.gov.ph, and there are several platforms that they are launching today, and then several of them that we also supported the technical support and input and advice to the agencies that is sponsoring.
The Philippine government has jumped up 8 notches on the recent Economic Freedom Index. What is the World Bank's reaction to this, ma'am?
That is definitely a positive news to the country, and that attests to the fact that the government really tried for the last several years to really strengthen the openness, transparency, and then tackle the governance up front as their forefront of the commitment. And I think that shows in numbers now.
However, the president said that there's still a lot of work to be done in improving transparency and accountability for the Philippine government. What do you think are the areas that the government should improve on?
Well, there are lots that they can do, but they have done already a lot, especially things like the reforming and opening up the budget. And then this year's budget has really also changed for the last 3 years. Every year, the new reforms have been introduced. And so now they're making further effort to really strengthen public financial management system, which is really a core of monitoring and then a stronger accountability for that one. So I think there are a lot to be done there. And then also how this will be enforced throughout the system, not just certain level, but then from the top to the local government level. That's going to be quite challenges. But I think that by using the two-way approach, like establishing a system, policies and controls from the top down, but also opening up the information and involving the users and beneficiaries, the whole public, to monitor the government and then demand the services. That will also strengthen from the bottom up. So I think the government is doing a good job, and then I think a lot to be done. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Yan po ang Assistant Country Director ng World Bank na si Chio Kanda. At 3 araw po magtatagal itong GGS o Good Government Summit 2014 at ngayon nga po ay natunghayan po natin ang pagbubukas po ng summit na ito na pinangunahan nga ni Pangulong Aquino. Bago po ako magpaalam, nais kong pasalamatan ang RTVM, PTV4, IBC 13 at Radyo ng Bayan para sa coverage na ito. At maraming salamat po sa inyong pagtunghay sa live coverage namin ng Good Governance Summit Opening Ceremony dito po sa PICC. Muli, isang magandang umaga. Ako po si Cathy San Gabriel.